Welcome to the Living Word Podcast. I am your host, Geneviève, and these episodes serve as a reminder to how essential your fullest expression is on this planet during one of the most transformative times in our history. Together, we are going to explore truth through vulnerable conversations about life's deeper meaning, exploring holistic wellness, mindset, spirituality, entrepreneurship, love, and everything in between. Let's dive in, shall we? Welcome back to the Living Word. Today is a very special day because I get to host the first episode with the love of my life and my business partner, my best friend. The list goes on. But we did something really amazing over the last few days. We recorded our first course, which is called the OIR Method, and it all starts in a rooftop pool. Yet, we're gonna get to that in a little while because you need some backstory, not backstory on our love story. That's for another episode. It's coming, I promise. Enough of you have asked. But today is going to be the backstory of how OIR was created. Because we believe that we have to first embody the change that we want to teach to others.
Right.
And we know that this method is going to create a ripple effect. It is a transformative approach to awaken your full potential and reshape your reality from within. And since we've met, I believe that that's what we've been doing. When I look back to when we first came together, started getting to know each other, it's like giving me butterflies in my heart right now because we were on a very big path of uncertainty.
Yes. Yeah.
We were searching, yet we didn't know for what.
Right.
Yet we were dedicated to doing something different, even though we didn't know where that would lead us. And so thank you for being open to even sharing that story.
Yeah.
I believe that
I'm honored. I'm really excited.
for more people to be willing to open themselves up and, shine a light into the shadows of themselves. It takes stories. We learn from stories. And I would love if we could start by you sharing a little bit about where you were at when we met some years ago, from the position you're in right now. If you look back, like, where were you at? What did that look like for you? What was that process like?
Wow. And this is something that I like sharing and like diving deep. That's not something I've enjoyed doing in the past. and over this last 2 years, especially creating this course, I've learned a lot about myself. And I would say when I first came to Mexico, and we're talking about where I was at, I thought I had it together, and now looking back, I realized I had nothing together. I was at a place where I just moved out of Minnesota. I was just kind of coming to Mexico to get away, get out of winter for a little bit, have a reset, and really start to evaluate things. I think there was a lot that just got away from me, and deep down in my soul, and thank God, He knew it's time to pull me out of this environment and sit with myself and think and be and enjoy. And this just so happened to be the place where it was. And it gets me emotional, and I get really excited about it. But I've been, in the networking business and network marketing for 14 years. I've been around people all the time. Coaching has always been a passion, encouraging, helping and guiding people. And I found that I wasn't doing that for myself. Anything that was coming up for me, I was shoving down by helping other people instead of addressing, what really needed to be addressed. And you alluded to it a little bit as well, where, if we want things to change, we have to change. And I know I've said that many, many times before, and within these last 2 years, I finally am embodying it. And I found that, it's helped me in so many different areas. But I would say I was, at that time I was burnt out. I was searching. I was wanting to grow, but didn't really know how to. Like, yes, there's all the books and there's all the every tool is available to us, but it was like, where do I start? Like, how deep do I go? Do I have to go all the way back to childhood? Do I go back just 5 years, 10? What does that look like? And so it's been quite the journey. These last 2 years have been remarkable. Again, I wanted to get out of winter for 2 months, and it's been 2.5 years now. The best 2.5 years ever. And so I'm just excited. I'm excited to dive in. And I know when, we first met, like I was here for a weekend, we hung out a little bit, and that was really the first time we got to know each other. I know I'm not going to get more into that story right now because that's for another time, right? But you were going to a Joe Dispenza retreat, like a week-long retreat, and that was the first time. And I had like followed him a little bit, but I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I can't wait for her to get back so I can learn what she learned. And now I'm like, I would never be able to take all that information in because it's intense. But
Don't say never.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, meaning I would have never been able to get all the information from you that you received in that week. But I know that was a huge inspiration for me watching you go there, and that was like our first opportunity after that to really connect. But I guess I'm curious, how has that retreat, really shaped you and this course that we've created?
I'll get into that in just a moment. Yeah, you said something. You were like, do I have to go all the way back to childhood? And I find that so fascinating because one of the polarities that we have in our lives that has really helped us understand polarity is our family upbringing.
Yeah.
And you are the oldest of 7.
Yes.
An incredible family, the type of family that when I went to meet them for the first time, I was like, wait a minute, everyone's here together and they're getting along. Everyone wants to be together. I had never experienced that before. And so I just wanted to highlight that because mine was very different. It was a lot of separation. My mom left when I was very young. And yet we all still have work to do regardless.
Right.
And I just, that kind of just is so important to tell people that no matter what happened in our past, it is no one else's responsibility to do the evolution and the healing. It is our responsibility. And I know that as a God-fearing man and from a family that is so incredible, for you to overcome so many places of shame and guilt and talk about it, it has allowed me to be more vocal about my truth. And so I just want to thank you. Okay, Joe Dispenza. So one of the last books my incredible father gave to me was Becoming Unlimited. And I had always wanted to go to Joe Dispenza, and I had gone to a lot of retreats, and I had done a lot of workshops. I mean, I grew up, my dad was a holistic health practitioner, there was a lot of opportunity. And I had made a decision. I was like, okay, the next thing I do, I want it to be like a big deal. And not meaning the other ones weren't, but I wanted it to be like, I wanted to go to someone who was, it felt like almost intimidating.
Right.
And so.
A little scary.
Yes.
Yes.
So I went to Joe Dispenza with my girlfriend, and at that time, I was in a period of deep healing. I came to Mexico to heal myself, and I talked about it in episode 2 of The Living Word. You can go back and hear the full story, but Dr. Joe Dispenza was that avenue. And so when I went to that retreat, 7 days of creating a framework of understanding and meditating, and I was a little bit nervous about what that looked like. I'd always meditated and taken time for myself, yet that was one of the most transformative experiences because it was the first place I knew what it felt like to actually surrender. I thought I knew, and I'm sure there's levels of surrendering, yet I learned how to surrender into nothingness. So coming out of that retreat, I remember getting picked up, and it was in Mexico. I only had like a 20-minute drive home. And I was looking outside and at everything, and the colors were brighter, and I could hear things clearer, and everything was different. Nothing had changed around me, yet everything changed within me. And that was the first time that I understood the roadmap to how we store emotions and experiences in the physical body, in dis-ease. I had known that, I had believed that, I had been shown that, yet I never could find that path that led me to where I needed to look. And so one of the things I'm very grateful for by the work that Dr. Joe Dispenza is doing is he's creating environments where it's safe. I had gone to a lot of places where I didn't feel safe to fully surrender. And when I remember there was a moment on the beach at his retreat, and we were doing a walking meditation, and everyone was like falling over and like knocking themselves into the sand. And I realized at that moment I was afraid of doing something wrong. And so I held myself back from falling. And then I looked at this like cute little girl that was like half my size fall over onto the ground. And I remember thinking, oh, I'll be okay if I fall. And so I let myself surrender, and I fell over in this walking meditation. And then something miraculous happened. Everything went white. Everything disappeared. And I could feel my Father. I could feel God. I could feel everything unseen in that moment of nothingness. And when I opened my eyes, Dr. Joe was standing above me, like talk about a bucket list item. And not like, that sounds kind of weird, but he was just like observing me.
Right.
And I bursted out laughing, like hysterical. And he asked me, later on, he followed me walking, I got back up, and he asked me like, I'm so curious, what was so funny? And I said, when you become one with everything, you realize how ridiculous the things we stress about are in this reality. And that moment changed me.
Wow.
And it was the moment I recognized that I had been so in a delusional state for so long. And delusional meaning, I remember we were sitting outside one time and you were staring off at the trees, and I said, Hayden, what are you thinking about? And you were like, nothing. And I thought you were lying to me. I was like, nothing? And you were like, no, nothing, like actually nothing. And I had never known I didn't know that was a thing. And then at Joe, I got to nothingness. And I didn't know how to recreate it.
Right.
And so it was like, I now knew that it was possible.
Pretty peaceful.
It's so peaceful.
Yeah.
And talking about surrendering and emotions and all of that, like one of the things that I've witnessed, you've been coaching thousands of people for 14 years, and we have a lot of discussions. And one of the things you told me was the lack of emotional intelligence that you witnessed people had, and not as a judgment, just in general, people of all ages. And you had even sent a lot of people to emotional intelligence courses.
Yeah.
And so could you share a little bit about that? Like what you noticed with people? Because that's a really big key when we talk about emotions. That's something we talk about in the OIR method.
Right. Well, I think, especially with all the conversations that we've had and, really discovering this more, because I was just like, how is this not common sense, for people? Like what I would think common sense is not common sense. What other people think is not common sense. And
didn't we meet someone the other day and his shirt said common sense isn't so common?
Yeah, yes. It was so good. We laughed. I think we took a picture of it too.
Maybe, I don't know.
And so I was like, what is going on? And I think through all this discovery, and I would send people to emotional intelligence course, and which had a huge impact on my life. And I'll say one thing that was not good on my part was that after I got done with that, I thought, oh, I'm good. I got this figured out. Instead of putting it into practice day in and day out. And that's one of the things with the OIR course. We wanted to make it really simple so it was like really easy for people to go back to. But what I found through coaching and communicating and helping all of these people is that people are just so much in their heads that they take the emotion out of it. They take the body. They don't think about what other people are feeling or how their reactions are. Their reactions are impacting other people. Like we just don't think about. Most people don't think about it, and we're so distracted. We easily get so distracted. I'm talking about, as a collective altogether, we get so distracted by what's on the TV, what's in our phone, what's going on, out in the world, what's the debates, all of these things are so distracted that take us out of our own body and disconnect our mind from our hearts. And that's where I believe people have kind of lost this EQ, emotional intelligence, that is so important to have. It's so important to have.
And how did you notice that in people, though? What were you experiencing where you realized that they needed to, were they lashing out? Were people getting, what were you seeing?
People lashing out. Reaction. That's what I was seeing. Reaction. Lashing out, being short-fused, all of those things that, those days where it just all of a sudden everything's annoying. It was like that all the time for people, and I was noticing it over and over and over and over again. And as a result of it, because we're in the people business, they couldn't connect with others. Mm-hmm. And after you can't connect with others, you start to not want to connect with others. And you recluse and you get angry and mad and all of the downward spiral emotions. And so that's I guess the biggest thing that I noticed is people would just get angry, and it was everybody else's fault, and no one was taking personal responsibility. So I know, for you got to, grow up with your father who's into holistic health and got to help so many people, and so that was something I think that you helped teach me a lot about, was how to better communicate with people, because I would get frustrated when I deemed somebody as not having a high enough emotional intelligence to even have conversations. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I know we've talked and spoken a lot about your father, and he's been a huge influence on your life, and he's helped a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But, sadly, we don't get to have these conversations with him anymore. I would love, if you could just dive a little bit deeper into that, because I know through creating this course, through creating this method, he has been such a big part of it, and the lessons that have been learned and the conversations that, as he was leaving us, you got to have with him in those moments. And so I think it's really important that, we dive into that a little bit so people know the heartbeat of where this is coming from.
You said something that people were reacting. And that's what I witnessed all the time. And so my father was a single dad, had a holistic health practice. He helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I mean, this man was truly amazing. I look back now at even how much he did for us, and I'm just blown away by him. Yet there was different sides to him, and a few of those sides, particularly one of those sides, it was really only myself and my brother that would see it, and he was the happiest, most social guy with people. He would help anyone, anytime, drop everything for everyone. Christmas dinners at our house were anyone who had nowhere to go was at our house. Like, he would have big things, so social. And when he was on his own, we would see this anger. And it would come out in the most, like, I'll do bunny ear quotes, random times. It would be little things that would become big things. And there was no conversation. There was no communication. It was like, this is it, you are wrong. And so from a very young age, I didn't understand it, but my dad would have these like rage moments. And what I recognize now, looking back, because when he was in hospice, I mean, when he was diagnosed, like 4 months later, he was in hospice and passed away, he finally spoke to me. And I would get in bed with him, and he would, for the first time ever, allow me to take on the role of helping him. And what we discovered was that from a very, very young age, he was leaving home, the oldest boy leaving home as a farm. And like, that's just not something you did.
No.
And so he was like the black sheep, and he went to Ontario. I don't know the whole story, but he had this bitterness inside of him from then. And he always felt like he had to prove himself. And what I know now is that continued. And every time someone didn't believe in him, or any time like he didn't feel that he was good enough, it would become anger and bitterness. And he started building these chains of anger. And it became his subconscious. He didn't know, or he chose not to look at it. And so then as a father, when I would see this healer side, and then I would see this anger side, this like childlike anger. And it really, really bothered me. And so I left home very young because I didn't know how to process it. I didn't know how to communicate it. And it was too much.
It was like you being the adult as a child almost.
Exactly.
Right.
And so what I know now is that his cancer was, in my opinion, a culmination of a lot of things, yet it was really the acidity of the body from that deep-seated, unresolved anger. And he mirrored something to me because I watched that happen, and he passed away. And because at the end of his life, he was so happy, he had everyone around him. And I watched the essence of who my father really was show up for the first time. And that's when it clicked for me, that unresolved emotions are the culprit of dis-ease in the body. And I can go way more into that, and I'll leave it for another time, but then it mirrored it back to me. Yeah. And I realized that I had what they had told me was going on in my body. I was like, well, now I must I must figure out, what is my unconscious emotion? And for me, it was shame, because there was so many things that but even when my dad would get really angry for no reason, I thought it was me. Right. And so this unworthiness, I have to prove myself, I have to be better, I have to do better. I would get straight A's, and I would always go above and beyond. I was craving to be seen. And that continued in everything I did, and it actually built very unhealthy behaviors that led me to burnout, which I'm going to actually talk about in the next episode with my beautiful friend. Yet, when I went to Joe Dispenza, it was because I decided that I was not going to do the same thing that I had witnessed happening to people in my own family. And it was then that I was like, I will find a path of connecting the emotional body to our well-being. And in a way that makes sense, because I had grown up in that industry and I still didn't understand it. Right. And so it took commitment. Right. And it took really
I've watched you do the work.
And still do it. It never ends. There's no end to it. Yet I didn't want that to be my reality. And so now, full circle. Yep.
Where are we, back on the rooftop now?
That is, back on the roof. That's
we're going to the pool.
That's what brought us to OIR. It was this determination to find a way to figure it out. And so I had been coaching a lot of people, but I didn't really have like a strategy behind it or a method. It was really like in flow. I have had many certifications. I'm what they would call like credited to do it.
Yeah.
Yet I didn't really have a way. And so we were on your rooftop. Or do you want to share your side of what you saw first?
Well, yeah, you were on a coaching call, and as we've had a lot of funny stories because we live in a great place that you don't have to like be dressed up all the time, and so we could do coaching calls like in our swimsuits and just hanging out. And so we're doing that. We're doing each of our calls on different sides of the pool, and I'm get done with my call, so I'm chilling, probably cracked open a Modelo, and getting ready to relax, and I'm just kind of observing and watching you on the other side, and it was like you were on the phone, and all of a sudden, you just like a spark hit you, and you popped up, and you're still on the call and getting really excited, like it was like a light bulb moment of all of a sudden, I know exactly what my method is. I know exactly what this looks like. And I know that the call went great, but then what happened afterwards, she ran back in, grabbed a notebook, and started writing all of this out. And it was like, what is going on right now? And she's like, I got it. And I'm like, you got what? She, don't talk to me. Okay, so, sounds good. And now that's really where it all started, and we've refined and talked so much about it and have tested different things. But from my perspective, that was like the lightning bolt moment where the God call came down, and I watched it hit you. Mm-hmm. And that moment is one of that I'll never forget.
I love that we call it the God call.
Yeah.
And I remember getting it and running out of the pool and writing it all down, and it wouldn't stop. It didn't stop. It just kept going and going and going. And then what happened is I was like, oh my gosh, we have this thing, we have it. And then we got our design team to like create the branding of it, the slides of it, and which we would now call the first draft. Yep. And then we took it with us on the road for one of our other businesses, and we incorporated it into our training, and we tested it with almost 100 people.
Yeah.
And it worked every single time.
Yep.
And people had like miraculous changes, and they, were recognizing things that were holding them back they had never even thought about before. And so we were like over and over and over again, it was working. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if any of you listening have felt this, but then there's a dead stop. And you just know, you can't explain it, but you just know that now is not the time. And old me would have been like, I remember talking to you and I was like, I feel like what's wrong with me? I need to get this to the public. I need to do this.
Have all the information, yeah.
But it wasn't the right time. And that's one of the messages we have for everyone is sometimes God gives you something absolutely amazing. And there's more for you to learn. There's more for you to do. There's more for the preparation. And we don't see it at the time. So we try and force it. And then we kind of like do it halfway. Yet we trusted. Mm-hmm. And we held back and we kind of stopped. And that was about a year, maybe even more. And that pause, so much has happened in that pause that when the OIR method came back to life suddenly, we both had gone through such massive transformations in our lives. I mean, I had self-healed my dis-ease. We had completely, radically, our entire lives are changed. And we always say, like, now it's by design. Everything's by design. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, the right team came in. The production team, the graphic team, the project design team, everyone came together, and OIR took life in a very short amount of time. Mm-hmm. And so I think the story is so magical because it's part of the process.
Yeah.
we don't get to choose sometimes. This is an anointed mission that we're on, to give people back the tools so that they can create radical change. And we believe in therapy and modalities and all of these different things, but what happens when you don't know how to self-regulate? And what happens, like my father, when you don't have the necessary support and tools to be able to shine a flashlight into your shadows at any given moment, whether you're driving the car and someone cuts you off and you get enraged, like, you know, or maybe it's your kids. Like, what happens when we don't have those tools? Well, we see a society that is so disconnected and separated from each other and themselves and God, and it creates this spiral. And then that spiral puts us into survival mode. We're no longer in our mission.
Right.
And I think that that's something that we're both very passionate about with
Yeah.
OIR.
Massive. And that the pause is kind of like a macrocosm of part of OIR. You know, there's so much juice, there's so much goodness that comes in that pause, in that gap, in that moment of, oh wait, I'm back in my body, I'm back in my heart, I am fully present right now. And I know, like, through my process, and this probably is true for other people as well, maybe, I don't know, maybe they don't even know what it feels like, but they will after they go through this, is I just wasn't present. I didn't sit in my feelings. I shoved them down all the time, just shoved them down. And that's something that I'm not proud of. I'm, you know, still kind of, I feel like I carry a little shame around, but it's like, now I have the tools. Now I have the tools every single day, in every single moment, because it can just happen at a split second. Like, the enemy is going to attack, and the enemy is really good at bringing up the past, is bringing up these low frequency emotions of shame and guilt and fear and all of these things. And it's like, no, it's heavy, those chains. I don't want that. That's not what I want for my life. That's not what I want for my future. It's not what I envision having. But if we don't have ways of dealing with it, if we don't have ways of not dealing with it, I'm going to say overcome it. If we don't have a way of overcoming it, it's going to keep lingering on in the background until eventually it destroys you. And that can show up in many, many, many different ways. But I think now more than ever, it's so important for people to have a tool, a method, a methodology of, okay, life is kind of crazy right now, or that thought was kind of crazy right now, or that situation was kind of crazy right now. What can I do to get back to the present moment to now make a good decision? My whole point of this little ramble was, you need to get present to be able to make good decisions. And I think we can all agree that we are way better at making decisions when we are fully present, when our heart and our mind are connected. It's just like, you don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry. You're gonna get everything. The list goes out the window, and all of a sudden the cart is full, and you're probably opening up a bag of chips while you're shopping, right? Like, we don't wait until everything falls apart. We get equipped to be ready when life does happen, because life is going to happen. And that has been the most exciting thing, I think, for me, of us, like, talking this through and figuring it out. And, you know, we always say, like, it's not ours, it's from above. And we just get to share this information. We get to share this methodology because people need something that is quick, that is effective, that is simple, but is also life-changing.
I love what you said, and I love your rambles, by the way. Always ramble. It's the best. Our mini TED Talks are my favorite. Yet, that's exactly it. Like, why we've been taught that we don't pause until we are forced to. And it's like my father, you know, terminal cancer through his entire body, from literally head to toe, brain, everything, at 59 years old. And he finally was able to see himself clearly. And there's a lot of methodologies out there. I mean, a lot of them. And different ones work for different people, and I think they're incredible. Yet, I really believe that the OIR method, which really takes quantum science and neurolinguistic programming and blends them together with so much more, it's something for all ages, for any part of your process, wherever you're at in it, to incorporate and utilize and create lasting change. And I know for myself, like in integrating all the work from Joe Dispenza and everything I was doing, even all of the healing certifications I have, like this method solidified it into me and allowed me to embody it. And the best part has been doing it together, being able to shine a light in each other's shadows with love, without judgment. And I know that for both of us, our hope is that couples and families do this together and create change together and break generational curses and traumas and open themselves up to the divine and possibility and recognize that this infiltration of programming, that there's lack and scarcity, that it's really not true. And I believe that this is that step. And I feel very grateful that we get to present it to the world after 2.5 years, and that it's been refined. And I know that even after it's out, it's going to shift and change. And we've already had so many people have amazing transformations. And it may or may not be out to the public when this podcast episode comes out. And if it's not, then there will definitely be a wait list and you can sign up. And we are also going to offer integration sessions with people, because this is our anointed mission right now, and it will evolve. And I believe that if you can change your energy, you can change your life, and you can close the gap from who you feel like inside and who you present yourself outside. And when you can close that gap and you can start to see yourself through a lens of possibility, you can make changes with integrity. And then we get to raise the next generation of people, of humans that don't have to do as much work. That get to put all of their vital force energy into this planet. Because you know what, you guys, people always talk about how much bad and destruction and everything going on. And yes, there is, but you know what else? There's so much good. There's so much good happening. And I believe that when we can shift our focus to the truth of possibility and abundance and light and healing and away from the separation and scarcity and lack that we've been told to believe, everything changes. And here in Mexico, we see that happening already. We see people from all over the world coming here because they know that something must change. And what happens is they change their energy and their entire life changes. And I'm just excited to bring that to more people.
Yeah, I am too, and I'm grateful that we had the call to come here to calm down for a second and really get this implanted onto our hearts and into our minds. And I love that it is for all ages. It is a little kid could understand this, all the way to a grown adult, somebody that might think their time has passed, can get this and start making immediate change. And I know for me, it has enriched my relationships. It has brought a whole new meaning to faith, and it has helped me become closer to God. It has helped me in every area of my life, and it was just a few simple changes. And I just think that is what the world needs right now, and that is what people need right now, is to enrich relationships, get closer to God, make better decisions, not be so focused on the past, being focused on what's forward, what's ahead, what are we creating, how are we making an impact, and acknowledging those things that happened in the past because they're real and they're valid, but focusing forward and really making change to spread this message and make some good things happen.
Oof, I'm so excited. And so if you're listening to this episode and you're like, what is the OIR method? I want to know more. We're going to put everything in the show notes for you because this is available to everyone. And I know that both of us feel very honored to deliver a message of truth, of possibility. And whether you're a male or a female, whatever you can change your life, and the excuses are no longer valid because there's a way to do it, and it doesn't have to be complicated or difficult. It gets to be simple, and it's something that I know when you realize that you have all the answers already inside of you, it's just about being able to tune into them. You will recognize that this world is a totally different place than you've been led to believe. And when that happens, please share it with us and share it with other people, because once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. And it's all of our responsibility to keep passing that torch along so that we get to change the narrative of the planet. And so thank you, my love, for doing this mission with me. Thank you to all of you listening to the Living Word, and we are so excited to create an impact with you. Thank you so much for joining me on the Living Word podcast today. My hope is that you have something new or a remembrance that you can apply in your life right now. Isn't that the whole point of us learning and growing? To take new understandings and alchemize them through our own human experience? Please like and leave a comment or review if you enjoyed this episode, and share it with people in your life who would benefit from hearing it also. Make sure you subscribe to the Living Word podcast on your favorite platform and be the first to know about upcoming episodes. Sending so much love and gratitude to be on this journey together. See you soon.